Okay, so I was having all kinds of technical difficulties. I'm not sure why, but I was. Anyways, um, I'm going to lift up each picture, and then at the end, I'm going to take a picture so you can kind of, follow, like while you're listening, you can look at the picture. But we start out in your current situation with the Queen of Swords in reverse, and she is crossed by the Hanged Man. But we also have a suited pair. We have a king and a queen in the recent past. And so when I look at these two, there is some miscommunication here, lots of miscommunication, not seeing eye to eye. And it goes a little bit deeper than miscommunication. It could be, I don't know if I want to say fundamental differences, but I feel like the king and the queen, the queen is trying to allow, no, I think the king, how do I say this? I think the Queen of Swords is very guarded. And the king is, maybe trying to reach her, but can't. And so I look at this, kind of as you're the Queen of Swords. And I know you're a Leo, so this is Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. But your energy is presenting as the Queen of Swords, like very guarded or very like, I don't know how we can move forward with this at all. I feel like this King of Swords is... usually King of Swords is open, honest, and this might be how the relationship started out, but there just feels like there is misgivings, miscommunication, kind of flipping the script, manipulation, especially verbally, maybe some gaslighting, and I feel like this Hanged Man reverse is this limbo card. So you're trying to navigate through this of like emotionally, should I step away from this? I don't like it. I really don't like it. I do like the suited pair of the king and the queen. I do. But I feel like this king is trying and the queen is just like, there's too much. Like in the past, either this started off pretty strong, but then there's different expectations or something like that. And even if I read you as both the king and the queen in this scenario and how you're navigating this situation, it's putting you in a limbo space. It's putting you in this kind of emotional, conundrum, disconnect. This is not what I wanted. This is what I thought I wanted. Maybe somebody wasn't honest when they, because I see in the recent past, the King of Swords, he like shows up. He shows up in a way that is, dedicated and open and honest. And then all of a sudden, it's like the current situation of the Queen of Swords in reverse is kind of like, okay, well, that's not really what I thought was going down, but okay. It just feels like I'm not saying it's not something that can't be recuperated, but I feel like there was a shift in energy, I guess is my point. Like there was a good communication, there was openness, honesty, or at least everybody was on the same page. You guys were on the same page. And then it's like, then the Hangman in reverse comes in and says, oh, okay, maybe I misinterpreted. And then maybe the emotions come in. I don't know, but this Hangman in reverse between the suited pair is just kind of like, there's not necessarily a stuckness, but there's like some decisions that have to be made. There's real talk that has to be had. And we go into the headspace. We have beautiful Leo coming out in the reading in the headspace. So I love it. It means that everything's going to be fine. And honestly, when I look at this card in your logic and reason, it's optimism. It's kind of like, if things work out great, if things don't work out great, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to, I have 9 lives, that kind of energy. And honestly, the sun is right above the Queen of Swords. She's kind of looking down on the Queen of Swords reversed, like it is not that serious. And, is it worth it? Now, again, I feel like there was kind of a strong connection here, but there's some difficulty. Now, this can also have to do about decisions that you have to make. So the head obviously is the sun, meaning that everything, remain optimistic. Everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to. Remain optimistic. Current situation, Queen of Swords in reverse. There's a guardedness, but I also feel like the Queen of Swords in reverse is not going to take any shit either. She's guarded for a reason because things aren't being, and again, I don't just read this across the board of a relationship. It also feels like just I don't know if it's work related or just there's just miscommunication here, and there's reason to be guarded. Well, this is not what I signed up for. And then in your foundation, you have the Five of Wands, which is also Leo. So if you look at this as the feet of the foundation, this is another Leo. This is energy that you will not compromise. This is advocacy for yourself. This is fighting for what you believe in. So it feels like you have a little bit of a fight on your hand. Now, the sun says it's going to be okay. So there's a couple different ways that I can interpret this. If I look at it with the suited pair, with the relationship aspect of it, it's definitely, boy, that's not what, I misinterpreted that. Maybe you meant something else, or maybe you actually said something else. A little bit of gaslighting, right? And there's an emotional kind of, disconnect. And you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and say, is this something I want to continue to do? But then if we look at kind of just your life situation, I feel like the King and the Queen of Swords, the Queen being reversed and the King being upright, again, are expectations. Is this the decision you made? Did you make a decision expecting something and got something else in return, especially with some life choices that you've made? And again, it puts you in limbo. The number one thing here is limbo. Miscommunication that has led to limbo, or things not being clear and has led to some confusion. And so now it's like, okay, that's not what I signed up for. And so, and again, that can be a couple different areas of your life. But the beautiful thing is, the sun is at the top, at the crown of your spread, that's kind of spreading out, spreading the rays and saying things are going to be fine. It's better to know sooner rather than later. It's better to shed the light on the dark corners, because the foundation is showing that you're going to have to advocate for yourself. And I think it's in a couple different areas of your life. I don't have pentacles to say that it's work, but it probably is. This card a lot of times has to do with standing up for yourself, advocacy, doing, picking your battles, that kind of thing, and it's that Leo energy of trying to remain, as optimistic while you're doing that. So I like that the Leo energy's in your head, your crown, and in your foundation and your feet. This one is a little bit more unstable, but it's kind of like, listen, if I don't fight for this, who's going to? If I don't stand up for myself, who's going to stand up? Especially if there's things just didn't appear like there was honesty. And I don't know if somebody set out to gaslight you. The King of Swords is usually pretty on the level, but it could just be you misinterpreting or them not explaining correctly. And it just feels like a couple different aspects of your life. It does feel like close relationship, like, a situationship. And it also feels, again, like just life, how things are just not panning out the way you thought they were going to. And when we go to the near future, Gemini energy, not my favorite card, but, Eight of Swords is the card of feeling trapped. It is manifestation through hard work and diligence and dedication and, all the things. And really not being trapped, but feeling trapped. And realizing this is a self-sabotage card. So when I talk about having a suited pair of the King and the Queen, the King being upright in the recent past and the Queen being reversed, I guess what I'm saying is that you don't want to head towards self-sabotage, because I feel like this energy of how can you make an informed decision when you either are thinking one thing or being told something different? So there's really kind of this miscommunication, and there's, of course, this limbo, this emotional component that kind of goes into the future. I'll be curious to see what the advice is, but this Eight of Swords is kind of like you're not really trapped, but if you aren't clear, you're going to feel like you're trapped. But the sun, again, at the crown of your reading is extending the rays out and saying, like, things are going to get better. You do see things for what they are now. And so that's the important thing. And then that leads me down to the foundation. You see things the way they are now, so now you got to advocate for yourself. And you have to have conversation. So, I hope that makes sense. I'm going to look and see what the advice is, because I'm very curious. And it was really weird. Like, the light dimmed for no reason. I'm not really sure. I'm here by myself, so I'm trying not to creep myself out. All right, cool. I'm going to turn this stuff over and see what we have here. Yeah, I mean, this, to be honest with you, the advice really, it's all about it's all earth. So you got a bunch of swords, you got swords and fire in your situation, and then the advice is all earth, like let's kick some dirt on this fire. Let's kick some, let's dig with our swords and try to find out what the truth is. So how you feel about your situation is the Queen of Pentacles. There is a feeling of abundance. There is a feeling of happiness and stability, but also, you're presenting as the Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of Swords in reverse. So I'm not saying the Queen of Pentacles is delusional, but I also feel like the Queen of Pentacles is a very grounded energy where, Leo and all these swords, are you sure? I feel like the Queen of Pentacles is a safety net almost. I'm not looking, she's coming out on how you feel about your situation. I'm not saying you're not grounded, that things aren't stable, that kind of thing. But the Queen of Pentacles likes the finer things, and sometimes, you can look at her as long as I put in the work, as long as I keep, doing what I'm doing, I'm going to land on both feet, I'm going to be fine. And the Sun is a little far away from the Queen of Pentacles in this spread. And so I'm not going to say you're not going to be fine, but I feel like this Queen of Pentacles energy is, trying to remain realistic, trying to focus on work, trying to advocate for yourself, just like this is worth fighting for. Money. But the Queen of Pentacles also puts other people before herself. So I just want you to be, conscientious of that. But all in all, I like, I'm a Virgo, so I love the Queen of Pentacles. Like, she is my gal, but, she is all about home life. And I feel like, the Queen of Swords, like all the other stuff isn't really about that. It could be taking time away from home life. You could be not doing the things that you love. I almost feel like this Queen of Pentacles really wants to get kind of back to basics in a way. And, there's a protective energy to the Queen of Pentacles. So what's advice from Spirit? Four of Pentacles, Capricorn. Guarding yourself. Being protective of yourself. Worrying, really focused on finances, honestly. The Four of Pentacles is kind of like, look, yes, advocate for yourself. Yes, do all of the things that we need to do. Speak out, use your voice. But I also feel like the Five of Pentacles is like, but you also want to protect yourself and your money and your job and your energy and all that too. So it's about being, she's very guarded. And, you can see that her money's on her mind. She's kind of holding it close to the chest. She has the money at her feet. So she's like, And so this is you're rightly so to be guarded. So if we go to the relationship aspect of this, it's that same thing. If you feel like you were, some people were not being honest, or a person was not being, if you feel there's some dishonesty in the mix, I do feel that you have a reason to be guarded here. I do. I like it. It's a very protective energy, and I feel like this is, I look at it as a little bit more financial, but then when we were talking about kind of the emotional limbo, how can we do that? Well, you might need to step away. So you might need to step away a little bit, a lot bit, and protect yourself and take things slow in the relationship. And I feel like this is taking things slow anyways, because the swords are somewhat fast-moving energy as far as the relationship goes. Now, as far as, it is a call to do a budget, save some money. Are we overspending? Are we working a lot and not making a lot? Yes. I mean, everybody, right? Let's see what your obstacle is. We pull from the bottom. So your obstacle is the Temperance card, Sagittarius energy. This is what your obstacle is. It's time. It's alchemy, turning lead into gold. That's why I'm saying the Four of Pentacles, she's super guarded, but she's also hoping that, with her saving some money, there's going to be some more security. And that seems to be coming out. The advice seems to be a little bit more about protecting yourself. Now, whether you want to look at that from a romantic perspective or a financial perspective, the protection thing is coming out pretty heavy, pretty solid. And then we go to hopes and fears. You have two self-sabotage cards. Now, the good news is this one is in the near future, and this is a minor, right? So this is you kind of saying, I don't have to repeat patterns. The devil is in your hopes and fears. So we're going to look at him as, so the devil in reverse is the ultimate self-sabotage, right? But it's coming out of a period of learning of, oh, I don't have to keep repeating habits and patterns. I can totally change things up. So when we look at the devil reversed, we see that it's headed towards recovery. It's headed towards like, I get it. I don't have to keep repeating patterns of the past. Whether we're in, romantic situations or work or, and it's not even about standing up for yourself, because I know Leo doesn't really have an issue doing that. It just feels like sometimes Leo is a little bit more optimistic, and so they make decisions based on that, what could be, instead of what is. So I feel like this devil in reverse is just, it's that realization of, okay, this is on me. I have to decide what it is that I'm doing moving forward. I don't want somebody else to decide, because then that leads to this hangman energy. And this suited pair energy of like, oh, okay, well, I thought this, but I guess I'm wrong. Okay, I need to regroup. I need to emotionally get back into it. But the temperance is the temperance and the devil. So we have Jupiter and Saturnian energy here. So again, this is your obstacle, turning lead into gold. And then the outcome of that is the Three of Wands. Now this card is reversed. So I think you're really wanting to make a go of it where you're at. There does feel like there's restlessness, and I think it's financial, but I feel like this Three of Wands is like, look, I'm going to try to, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to try to brave it out. I'm going to try to see. And that could go also for the job that you're in, any kind of friendships or situationships right now. And I feel like this Three of Wands is like, you know what? I'm going to persevere. I'm going to plan for the unexpected. This is the opposite of a travel card. This is kind of staying put. And that makes sense with being guarded and protected, worrying about, your financial stability and also just your stability in general. And the temperance is like, give it more time. But at the same time, there's some things, there's some habits or some decisions, or not even just habits, but like ways of coping and doing things that you might need a little bit of a tweak, right? Because the devil in reverse is, the fear is you don't want to get chained and bound up with something again. You don't want to feel trapped and stuck. You might temporarily feel like this until you realize, oh wait, no, I don't want to get back into this energy. And so when I look at the devil reverse, it's a more hopeful card about getting unstuck, unbound, absolutely. And then your outcome card is the Five of Pentacles, which is the card that comes after the Four of Pentacles. And so when I was saying, you want to, I don't want to, not necessarily pay your dues, but you want to keep moving forward with that Four of Pentacles energy. But I feel like the Five of Pentacles is when you do decide to move forward. Sometimes it is leaving a job situation. Sometimes it's moving away from something that doesn't serve you. And so when we look at the Four and the Five of Pentacles, kind of the progression, it's like we're protective. We have to keep what's ours. We're focused on our own abundance and our own stability and our own finances and our own, house, basically. And then we go to the Five of Pentacles, where it's like, yeah, this, I've done the most. I've saved the most that I can. I've done what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes the Five of Pentacles is really kind of revisiting. It's a test of resources. So, and I feel like coming out of this devil energy that it's like, okay, now that I have some options, now I need to decide if I want to stay. And again, I don't have a moving card of definitely moving out from where you're at. But there is different, the financial thing is real. I feel like this Queen of Pentacles along with the Queen of Swords is kind of like, we need to make some big decisions. And again, I actually have the card of not moving anywhere. But, because the universe wants you to kind of stay put and give it time. And the Five of Pentacles is like, okay, that's fine, but there's also a test of resources. There's also a test of resources here. Meaning that like, things are going to get better, but it's going to take some time and energy and to, emotionally take yourself out of the situation. So I don't know, all of that kind of information. I'm going to pull out the majors really quick and do kind of like a recap, because this doesn't really seem like it's just about one thing. At first, when I saw this suited pair, I thought, okay, this is definitely relationship related. And then when I saw the kind of some of the other things, like the advice column is all pentacles. It's like, okay, this is about, This could be about where you're living. This could be about your job situation. This could be just in general, just about your stability. And so the situationship that was coming up initially is still there. And there's potential there. I love a suited pair. It's just that there seems to be either miscommunication, misrepresentation, or just gotta have talk to make sure nobody's gaslighting. And again, because the sun is in your crown, I think that you got this, and it's going to shine the light on everything. So I'm going to pull out the majors, and we're going to read with just the majors. And you know what? I'm actually going to pull out the majors, but I'm also going to take a picture of this when we're done. So let me do the majors first, and then I'll put everything back, because I think it's important. Yes. Okay. So we have 4 majors. So we start out with the Hanged Man in reverse, which is Pisces. Then we go to the Sun upright, which is Leo. Then we go to the Devil reverse, which is Capricorn. And then we end up with the Temperance, which is Sagittarius. So I really like the progression. So here's where we're at now. We are feeling a little bit in limbo. The Hanged Man in reverse is trying to you have to do a little bit of pain and suffering to figure out where you want to be. There's an emotional component to this card. There is this component of taking yourself out of the flow so you can kind of, regroup. You don't want to get swept away with anything. And I think that's also important to note with the King and the Queen. The Queen is reversed. She's guarded, right? And even Queen of Pentacles is saying, don't get swept away with anything. Take a step back. Figure it out. And the limbo card is okay. It's just saying, this is where you're at. There's a lot of, unknowns, and some of it is, somewhat emotional, right? So then the next card we have is the Sun, which is this beautiful Leo energy, which we love. And this means that everything is going to be okay, but I need to kind of, I need to remain optimistic. I know things are it's that Leo optimism. I know things are going to work out. I know they are. But I have to give it time and space. And I have to, there's a little bit of pain and suffering that leads to that enlightenment. And the Sun card is all about it. And it also says it's going to be fine. It was in the crown. And then the Devil in reverse, especially next to the Sun, this is shining the light on patterns and habits, either through like dating habits and patterns, or man, I just keep doing this. And sometimes the oppression is outside of us. I keep accepting this behavior from people. It's the Saturn. It's the Saturn energy of like time and space and death and rebirth and all the heavy things that we have to, but the Sun is right next to it, ready to shine the light on this Devil to say, this is a really big time of making behavioral changes, whether we're talking about relationships or finances or anything. And then we have the Temperance, which is the Alchemist card, turning lead into gold, realizing the past flows into the present and the present affects, flows towards the future. And that you do have a lot of, autonomy here. And also dropping things that aren't going to turn to gold, whether that's people, relationships, a job, as long as you have something else, you don't ever want to just say, I'm out, peace out. You want to make sure you have a fail safe. But I like this progression. I really do. I love these majors. It kind of takes it down to the bare minimum, starting out with, again, your beginning of the Hanged Man in reverse, being kind of in limbo. The Sun being like, that's okay. That's all right. We need this time to regroup. And if it's emotionally uncomfortable, oh well. That's the way it is. It's emotionally uncomfortable because we have patterns and habits that we have recognized that we don't like about ourselves and what we don't like in other people. And the Temperance is like, hey, we know that takes time and energy. And time is an ingredient when we're talking about the future. So I hope this resonates. I'm going to start uploading this. I'm going to pan out so you can kind of see what I was looking at, right? And, I really like taking up the majors because I think it gives me kind of a Cliff Notes version of what's going on here. And I think now is a time of emotional inventory before we actually get to the growth. So I don't know if I want to say that. It's emotional inventory during growth of like, okay, I'm going to step back and do this. And normally, and again, you're a fire sign. So a lot of times you want to just, let's do this. And it's like this Hanged Man energy is kind of like, let's chill. Let's chill for a little bit. Let's just kind of wait, see where we're at. Yes. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave the recording here, and I'm going to take a picture and then upload it to you. So let me know how it goes. Thanks, Jalen's. Thanks so much for hanging.